If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
Right now for the Knicks, except for one thing. And let's talk about it right now, because we do have to talk about it. The Knicks had a feel-good win against the Nets, snapping that 9-game losing streak against Brooklyn, but it was a no-show for one of their key players. RJ Barrett had just 4 points in 24 minutes. To me, he didn't look like himself at all, and he hasn't looked like himself lately. The addition of Hart seems to have even further exacerbated, that's the word, just how poorly he's been playing of late. Is it time to be worried about Barrett, Tommy? Because I've been one who's often kind of pushed back against concerns about RJ. But I mean, last night was kind of alarming. I mean, he just didn't look like he had it at all. And considering how much he's been struggling of late, what did you make of what you saw from him last night?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to beat this drum, but I've been beating it for a little bit now, and I think there's definitely cause for concern. Obviously, it wasn't just last night. Over his last 5 games, shooting 34% from the floor, 64% from the free throw line, 30% from downtown. Worse than that is defensively was again, didn't look engaged, didn't look it. The crazy thing is now you see the contrast when Hart comes in the game and you see the way he plays both ends.
Exactly.
Before it's almost not as noticeable if you just see, a sort of pretty looking girl, but then you put her next to a supermodel, you're like, oh my, the contrast, is stark. And that's what we've seen. And I wrote about it last week. Going back basically to the start of January, the Knicks have been. He's had by far the worst plus minus on the Knicks, one of the worst in the entire Eastern Conference, just in terms of his. The Knicks getting outscored when he's on the floor. It was minus 84 last time I checked, in a 15-game sample size. So those are alarming numbers. The efficiency isn't great, and again, the one thing you could rely on RJ to do was, at least give effort. It just hasn't played with that same level of spark. I don't know if he's dealing with a nagging injury. I don't know if there's something going on off the court. But this certainly isn't the Barrett we saw last season, especially the second half of last season. When he was essentially a 25, 5-and-5 guy, shooting 40% from 3. That just isn't there. The one thing we've always credited with Barrett has been his ability to bounce back, whether it's a bad first half and play well in the fourth quarter, or a bad 2 months of the season, then play well for 2 months. The inconsistency is maddening, but at least he has that bounce back ability. We'll see if they can at least if he can get back on track, because if he doesn't, he's going to lose a lot of minutes, and it's only going to and EJ, I said it the day after the Josh Hart trade. I said I don't want to look too far ahead, but if this could be a situation where, this could be the first thing that leads to the domino falling of the Knicks trading RJ Barrett.
Yeah.
And I'd be lying if I didn't say over the last couple of days, if the Knicks had traded Barrett and say Grimes and draft picks for Donovan Mitchell, a Brunson, Mitchell, Hart, Randall, Mitch, Rob lineup would be pretty fun to watch nowadays. Again, that's spelled milk. And we don't want to look too maybe they don't, if they trade Mitchell, maybe they don't have the first rounder to trade to get Hart. But
that
again, when you have a guy like Hart, who's that Swiss Army knife, and he fits in so well alongside Randall and Brunson. RJ's flaws are even more, are showcased, and they stand out that much more when you have a guy like Hart. Well, again, RJ was -7 in 25 minutes in a game the Knicks won by 18 points last night. Hart was plus 23. That's something we could see happen more and more going forward. And if that continues, you're going to see RJ's minutes dip while Hart's minutes continue to increase.
Yeah, and RJ, it's important to know RJ, I think in the fourth quarter, had went back to the locker room for a period of time. So it's funny, my dad texted me. He noted that he thought maybe RJ was wearing some kind of back brace. He thought he saw through his uniform, so maybe it's a back issue. Who knows? But something is not right, clearly, with Barrett. And yes, it is concerning at this point, because to me, when I think of RJ, like one of his best attributes is that, like, to me, he's almost like an innings eater in baseball. Like, he can play like any amount of minutes, and it might not be the most efficient minutes, but like he'll put up the volume of points and production you need for him to stay on the floor. If his minutes are going to come down, he's going to be this inefficient. that his value as a player decreases mightily, and like
Yes.
last night was a great example. He only plays 24 minutes. He only gets you 4 points, 8 shots. He didn't have the time. Like typically, because he plays 40 minutes, he could have a terrible 24 minutes and still end up with 25 points because he may rattle off the next 7 baskets he may make, and then that's it looks like his game's pretty good. If he's not going to have those opportunities to have those kind of games, he's going to have to be way more efficient and come out of the gates a lot stronger than he has throughout his career. So that's alarming.
The best thing you can say about RJ over his first 3 seasons was his production total. He's the first guy under the age of 23 to have, 1,000 points and 500 rebounds and 500 assists. And those were counting. He just piled up counting stats. And the argument, the pushback against other folks was, he does that because he plays a ton of minutes and he gets a ton of shots. And he's been in a situation where they need him to get shots. And they've been a bad team, so there's plenty of rebounds. Again, you're 100% right. If those minutes, his per 48-minute production was never impressive. That's why his PR and his VORP and some of those wards, some of those other advanced statistics. He was at the top of his draft class in terms of total points and total rebound. Near the top 5 and all those, and number 1 in total minutes. Now, if you look at those other advanced metrics, he's 15th, 16th, middle of the pack. If he doesn't have those minutes to compile those numbers, it spells trouble for RJ and the team.
And it's something I kind of noted earlier in the season, but I'm going to say it again and say it more forcefully. RJ Barrett, assuming he's back on the team next season, he needs to come back in maniacal shape. I think that if there's one thing I will say about him, and now he does play a lot of minutes, so it suggests that he's in pretty good shape. But you see him dying on some of these screens. You see him, kind of not having the attention to detail. There are times when he's going under on Spencer Dinwiddie, who's a clear shooter, like guy who's going to pull up from 3. And, one time he missed, but then it forced Hart to run after a rebound that shouldn't have happened. And they ended up getting the ball to somebody else who hit open 3. And I think to me, one of the problems is he's because of the production he's supposed to bring offensively, he's giving out everything he's got offensively. His defense has suffered, I think, because when I think about some of the best two-way players, Jimmy Butler, guys like that, those guys are in tip-top, like phenomenal, like top 1% shape. I can't say that about RJ Barrett. I just can't. I don't think he plays that way. I don't think he plays that hard on a night-to-night basis, on a possession-to-possession basis. Like you see the energy Josh Hart plays with. See how physical he is, how much he runs after loose balls, how he's playing every possession like it's his last. I just see too many possessions with RJ where he's in the area, but it just feels like he's a step slow. It just feels like for some reason he just can't move his feet fast enough to stay in front of guys. I don't know how many times he was, whether it was Cam Thomas or Dinwiddie, just went right around him. And it's just like, I just think that to me, it seems like he's hit some kind of physical wall this year. I think part of that is because of the responsibilities he's had with trying to be a two-way player. I don't think he's in the shape to do it. I really don't. And I think that that's a big issue. Randall, I think one of the differences we saw from this year to last year is that he is in better shape this year than he was last season. The year before was all-NBA season. He was in this, again, similar top 1% type physical conditioning, and he had the best year of his career up until that point. RJ needs to do whatever the hell Randall did that season and get himself in that kind of shape next season. I think that's going to be crucial. I know Tibbs had challenged Derrick Rose this year to get in the best shape of his life. Didn't seem to work for Derrick Rose per se, but he's issued those challenges before to Randall and Rose. He needs to issue that challenge to Barrett and say, hey, you need to drop 5-10 pounds. You need to come in the best shape of your life because your minutes are demanding it. Like your minutes are going to be on the line for you if you don't come in that kind of shape, because I have other guys who can come in and contribute. They got to issue the challenge.
100%. And, the one thing RJ has, go work in his direction is he's still 22 years old. He's not going to turn 23 for another couple of months. So certainly, these are typically things you can kind of work out in college and, in years gone by. RJ never had that, that luxury. So he's come in right away and performed and exceeded expectations early on.
Yeah.
Now he's failing to live up to those expectations he built up over his first 3 years in the league. And it's on him. Again, you sign a near max contract, $100+ million contract. The expectations are going to be ratcheted up, and it's on you to deliver. He hasn't to this point. Of greater concern is things are not only not living expectations; they're trending in the wrong direction. Maybe he needs a reset. Going to the Bahamas, wherever he's going to go for the All-Star break. Will potentially maybe help him out, but that was it's funny. I just thought of it now. That was a question that people were asking prior to the start of the season. Can RJ Barrett make an All-Star bid this season? Like, is he on that trajectory?
Yeah, I thought he would. Yeah.
You know, and he just certainly has been anything but thus far.
Yeah, I mean, think about again, Jimmy Butler, Jaylen Brown. Like, think about the physical conditioning those guys are in, and you ask yourself, is RJ anywhere near that? I'd say absolutely not. Like, I'm just being honest, and I don't think there's any reason why he can't, but he's gonna have to dedicate himself to that. I think he dedicates himself to being available. I think he plays through injuries, plays through sicknesses. We don't know that. I think he dedicates himself to being there for his teammates, regardless of how poorly he plays. But I think that that's the next step in his game. He wants to become the star player that I know he wants to become. I think he's got to get in much better shape next season. So